Did you guys know that the Czech Republic officially changed its English name in 2016 to Czechia? I know, Czechia, it's so amazing. I don't know why people don't use it. I'm gonna use it all the Here is a roadmap for today. Let's get started. As usual, we'll start with the government structure. There's a Czech parliament, which consists of the Senate and the Chamber of Deputies. The Senate is the upper house, but as is the case with many countries, has less power. It has 81 seats. Each senator has a 6-year term, and there's election every 2 years. So 1 in 3 senators gets up for re-election in every 2 years. The Senate has a very important job, nominating people for many positions. They can also veto chamber bills, but that veto can be overridden by a 50% majority. Chamber of Deputies is the lower house, but it has more power. It has 200 seats. Each deputy is up for a 4-year term and stands for re-election after every 4 years. This is the main legislature, and it can override any veto from the Senate, and as we'll see later, the president as well. It passes most bills by a simple majority, which is a majority of the people present instead of an absolute majority of the 200 people that are in the Chamber of Deputies. Now let's talk about two important individuals, the Prime Minister and the President. The Prime Minister is appointed by the President, but they also should have the support of the Chamber of Deputies. The Prime Minister heads the government and cooperates with the President to appoint ministers and perform various other actions. The President can veto any bill, but similar to the veto of the Senate, this can be overridden by an absolute majority of deputies. Also, the president shares a lot of powers relating to foreign affairs and military control with the prime minister, and the president gets elected every 5 years. Now, let's get into the electoral system of Czechia. Chamber of Deputies, which is the lower house that has the real power, has 200 seats, which are divided into 14 constituencies. Proportional representation is used for each of the constituencies, and to decide which candidates to select from each party, preferential voting is used. Basically, people are selected from party order unless someone gets 7% or more from the voters, who can select up to 2 people on their ballot. Let's look at a sample election that took place in late 2017. Here's the popular vote. Now, because of constituencies being multi-member, because of the proportional representation within each constituency, this popular vote is very well represented in the resulting mandate. Now let's move on to the Senate, which is the upper house of the parliament that has less power. It has 81 constituencies, but each of them is single member, which means that each constituency sends only one person. This is done by a 2-round runoff system, so if no one receives the majority in the first round, there's a runoff in the second round with the top 2 candidates so that one of them has to receive a majority. Let's look at a sample election that took place in 2016. Here you can see the popular vote is very diverse, but because every constituency sends only one member, the resulting mandate is not as proportional as the Chamber of Deputies. You can see, for example, the party in green got eliminated, the party in purple doubled its share, and a large number of others did not get any representation at all. Now let's look at the president, the person who appoints the prime minister and shares a lot of executive duties with him as well. There's a first round with many candidates, and if necessary, there's a second round for the top 2 candidates in case of no one getting an absolute majority. This is the same procedure as what happens in every single individual constituency of the Senate. Let's look at a sample election of this, which took place in 2013, and this can also be considered as a sample election for every single individual Senate constituency. The first round has many candidates and no one gets a clear majority, therefore there's a second round where one candidate wins 55% of the vote, therefore he wins. Now it's time for the occasion, although you might have guessed it already. On the 12th and 13th of January, and the 26th and 27th if necessary, which probably is going to be, there's going to be a presidential election. It is now party time. We're going to select 4 of the biggest parties right now in the Chamber of Deputies. Although because of its proportional nature, there's a lot of parties that are not represented in this. First is the Action of Dissatisfied Citizens, or ANO 2011. This party is the largest party in the Chamber of Deputies with 78 out of 200 seats. The Prime Minister, as can be seen here, is from this party. They do not endorse anyone for the upcoming presidential election. Ideologically, they're a centrist party and can be characterized as a populist party as well. They stand against corruption, have slight amounts of Euroscepticism. They stand for increasing wages for teachers and other leftist tax policies, and they're against the incoming refugees. This movement was founded in 2011 and has been gaining traction ever since. In 2016, there were some splits from this party, but they won big in the 2017 election. ANO also means yes in Czech. Now let's move on to the Civic Democratic Party, or the ODS. They're the second largest party in the Chamber of Deputies with 25 out of 200 seats. They have given their support to one person for president. They're a right-leaning party, but there's a lot of factions with views varying widely. Views typical of their party are Euroscepticism, right-leaning economic goals, being against Islamic elements like headscarves, and being in support for Czech culture and assimilation. In 2013, there was a massive corruption scandal, and then Prime Minister, who was of this party, had to resign. Because of this, the ODS suffered tremendous losses in the election of 2013. Now let's move on to the Pirate Party. They're tied at number 3 with 22 seats in the Chamber of Deputies, and they have no preference for a presidential candidate. They're a left-leaning party, and their ideals are typical of other pirate parties throughout the world, like supporting e-government, transparency, anti-corruption, net neutrality, and major reforms such as reforms in healthcare, taxation, education, etc. They also support more democracy and LGBT equality. They officially endorsed the Democracy in Europe movement, or DIEM 25. It calls to reform the EU and to make it more democratic and direct. Next is the Freedom and Direct Democracy, or the SPD. They're tied as the third largest party in the Chamber of Deputies with 22 seats. They have shown support for the current president, but they do not officially endorse him. They're a far right-wing party, and they call for a Czech exit from the European Union, anti-immigration and anti-refugee laws. They're officially against Islam, and they're a nationalistic party that supports assimilationism. The founder of this party is a Tokyo-born Czech businessman, and he founded this party in 2015 when it split off of another movement which is also founded by the same person. Now let's move on to some recent politics, which has been made longer based on popular demand. In 2013, the current president became president. He was a centrist candidate who sought better ties to Russia and China, and a stop to the refugee migration and the spread of Islam in Czechia. Along with that, he does support the EU, although he wants Brussels to control less of it. There was a corruption scandal in 2013 when then Prime Minister resigned. The president made his ally a Prime Minister, which was somewhat controversial. In the middle of 2017, there are some more crises that dropped the president's poll numbers from an incredible 55% to 41%. In the legislative election that took place in late 2017, the leader of the former coalition, the Social Democratic Party, suffered massive losses from 55 to 15 seats, such that they aren't even big enough to be talked about in party time. Along with this, other leftist parties like the Communist Party and the TOP09 went from 33 and 26 seats to 15 and 7 seats respectively. Overall, this loss for leftist parties was a gain in the ANO and right-wing parties. Opinion polls for the presidential election, the incumbent at 30% roughly, and the runner-up in 20%. The second placer, who's a former scientist, is a centrist candidate. He supports the EU and NATO, but wants less regulations. He is relatively pro-Islam and immigration, but he is anti-LGBT adoption. The third placer, who was formerly a musician and a journalist, is a central-left candidate. He supports the EU, supports immigration and Islam, and supports LGBT adoption and progressive taxation. And we saw the first round polls where the incumbent was at 30% and the runner-up was at 20%. But in polls where they both are matched up in a possible runoff election, which is the second round, there is no clear winner. Therefore, this prediction is actually not that strong. However, let's go into the prediction, and I predict that the first placer and second placer will qualify to the second round, and in the second round I predict that the incumbent, who is the first placer in the first round polls, will continue to serve as the Czech president. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to comment because I really need your suggestions for this new and hopefully improving channel. Be sure to share this video with people who might like it, and subscribe if you want to see more of these kind of videos.